This is David Badin, behind the scene with David Badin in Jerusalem, Israel. Today we're reporting about the further steps being taken by the government of Israel to enforce the provisions of what people have to do at the time of the coronavirus. It would seem that this is an international disease, a plague, which is affecting people all over the world. And the logical requirements that the government of Israel is making of everyone can be applied around the world. Anyone who doesn't take this seriously is taking his life in his or her hands. Let's review the situation at present. In Israel, which is a population of 9 million, half a million people have been thrown out of work for right now. There are 1,200 people in the hospital. There are 24 who are fighting for their lives. There's one person who has died, and we'll see how bad it gets. But the Israel Ministry of Health has issued guidelines after taking advice from international experts on what to do in a situation like this, an unprecedented situation which is affecting the whole world. 1, the ban on going to parks, malls, beaches. These are the new guidelines from the Ministry of Health, which can be applied to anywhere, any place. 1, do not leave home, except in situations that require it. Work in accordance with the prescribed limits set forth and in accordance with the separately published regulations. Food, medicine, other essential services, and procuring them. Number 2, do not leave home for parks, playgrounds, the beach, the pool, library, museums, nature reserves, or any other public places, except for taking out children exclusively within the framework of the family or with an animal, like a dog. Number 3, there are no classes at all in any institution at any place, not even the minimum number of participants, including sports clubs and gyms. This rule applies to circles held in public settings and in private settings. An unorganized sporting activity can be carried out up to 5 people and no more. The country where I come from, the U.S., playing catch is an example of something people can do. Number 4, social connections should be maintained by remote communication and avoid hosting friends and family who do not reside at home. 5, guidelines for at-risk population, especially older people, anyone over 65, even if they are healthy. Be very careful, because contact between older people at 65 and above, whether they're healthy or not healthy, with the general population, that is how the sickness and the plague can be communicated and contacted. Number 6, reduce the need for people leaving home with the following tools. 1, as much as possible, do work in a remote fashion through video conferencing calls. Number 2, every employer must, if you have to meet with your employee, do so at a 2-meter distance between employees and employers to ensure personal and environmental hygiene rules. Number 3, delivery services only at the doorstep. If you order something, have the delivery person leave it at your doorstep. Number 4, if you're going for dental care, try to postpone all treatments and perform only in necessary and emergency situations. Now, number 7, in terms of the whole list, even when leaving home in situations that require this, contact between persons must be reduced, and a distance, again, repeating the issue of a distance of 2 meters must be kept. Now, when using health services, if there's a health problem, it's advisable to use medical services remotely and not physically reach the clinic or the office of the doctor. Try as much as possible to get advice through the net or on the phone. Number 2, immediately upon commencement of quarantine. Now, many people who have had contact with people with corona disease have been quarantined. Now, even if they don't have it and they have it, communications must be checked, done indirectly. Number 3, if you feel that you are developing illness, fever, or with or without respiratory problems, you should go into home isolation and avoid contact even with family members. You should be regularly taking your temperature to see if you have fever of any kind. If you are concerned, contact your doctor or the referral center of any medical facility that you're a member of. Number 4, In the case of an illness with fever, the patient should be in isolation for up to 2 days, even if it's a small fever, because the fever can develop into corona. Now, what are some additional rules of conduct? One, avoid physical contact, including hugs and shakes. Two, do not open doors with the palm of your hand. Wear gloves as much as possible. Avoid touching your face. Wash your hands as much as you can. Create a situation of maximum ventilation of the home. Handles and doors must be disinfected. Avoid smoking cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or anything which is like cigarettes. This is a good opportunity to stop smoking. Avoid using one tool for shared eating, or avoid sharing food here and there. Health, nutrition, and exercise must be followed while staying at home. Even as I personally, I can't go to the pool in the morning where I do my exercise, so I have to do calisthenics at home. Rules for behavior outside of the home. If you must go out, if you have to go for urgent medical care, patients with fever and respiratory symptoms should be prohibited from leaving the house, even in medical emergencies. Employees, in accordance with government directives and regulations, to be published separately. Going out for the purchase of essential supplies, if delivery is not possible by delivery, by special delivery, or by a family member, you have to be very, very careful. And now, in the situation of a funeral, reduce as much as possible the required minimum, and close family members, and keep a distance, as we've talked about before, of 2 meters between people. Avoid staying in confined places. A 10-minute walk can be taken in isolated locations, and you can just time it in the yard as much as possible. Watching children, two families are regulated together, can keep toddlers, but be very careful. Remember, toddlers are the people who can carry the disease without even realizing it, especially to someone who is 65 and over. Exit how to behave while you're leaving the home. When you exit in a private vehicle, only one person in each vehicle at each time getting out, especially when an essential escort is needed, such as evacuation of non-urgent medical care. Public transportation should be avoided, and if you are in public transportation, stay away from people. Be careful with what you touch, and again, wear gloves as much as possible. Keep a distance of 2 meters in any public vehicle or public area that you meet people. Ensure hand hygiene and respiratory hygiene at all times. Now, how to behave at work. These are basic issues that everyone has to understand. People who are carrying out their anywhere in the world right now, carrying out I know that this, as you can tell from my English, I originally come from the United States, even though I live in Israel. Every one of the 50 states of the United States has been affected. Employees must be kept at least 2 meters away from it in all places, and descriptions from other employees. Temperature must be measured before leaving work, and there should be a thermometer at work to check your temperature at all times. Hands should be washed at the entrance and exit to work at least every 3 hours. Try to as far as possible, not to touch the nose and mouth, and wash hands after contact of this kind. The rules of conduct, as outlined above, must be followed. As of Sunday, March 22nd, these are required laws in Israel, and this should be understood that this is not an optional issue. In Israel, as I mentioned before, 1,240 people are now hospitalized with the corona disease. 24 are in very serious condition. One person has died so far, and the amount of medicines being brought over to do testing is going to reach at least 3,000, 4,000 kits to test people to see if they have it. Don't be embarrassed anywhere in the world to demand proper testing. The testing is not difficult to go through. Every clinic should be equipped with proper testing. Now, I want to go over to some of the political issues of what's going on today in Israel. There's as many people know, on March 2nd, there was an election in Israel, and there was not a resolution of that election, although the outgoing Prime Minister Netanyahu did get a majority did get a plurality of the votes. Has more than any other party, but he doesn't have members of the Knesset to make a government. He has 58 instead of 60. The required 61. So he has to go in a coalition with someone else. Now, the other large party, which is called Blue and White, had a little less than Netanyahu. With its aligned parties, it comes to 43. So they've asked actually 45, excuse me. So they've asked the United Arab List to support them, be a minority supporting the create a minority government. Now, when you look at Israel and you see, well, what's wrong with having the Arabs as part of the coalition? As after all, the Arabs have 20% of the population. Well, the United Arab List, this has to be understood, do not conform with the previous generations of Israeli Arab parties and do not show a loyalty to Israel or to Zionism. What's very important to understand is the Palestine Liberation Organization commands an ideological sway over the United Arab List and basic issues that the PLO is pushing, and the United Arab List is also pushing, makes it look to us here in Israel as if there's a foreign entity, a fifth column, which is pushing the United Arab List. They're making demands such as the end of the law of return, which is the preferential treatment, the automatic induction of Israeli citizenship to any Jew who comes to Israel, the protection and freedom for people who are Arabs who are serving life sentences for murder, if they're older people, even if they're they're serving life sentences, protection of illegal purchases and building contracts where they ignore the building contracts and just built on land that is not theirs, not to enforce that law in the Israeli Arab sector. And there's a number of other issues that the United Arab List has adopted, which basically make it very difficult for a loyal Jewish party to go into bed with it. And that's the reason why Edelstein, the Speaker of the Knesset, has been hesitant to allow the selection process to take place of a person to take the place of the Speaker, and also to select the committees, the committees which really run the Knesset, because his fear is that the United Arab List would then would together working with the Blue and White Party would get control of some of those committees. So basically, Edelstein's position is that you have to wait until there's a government, and when there's a government, which will probably be a coalition government between Netanyahu and Gantz, between the Likud and the Blue and White parties, wait for them to have their government. And if the government does not include the Blue and the Arab parties, the United Arab List, then the United Arab List will not get any of the committee chairs, which have a very important role to play in the running of the government of Israel. So these are some of the concerns happening right now. There's also, it should be noted that the Palestinian Authority is now asking Arabs who work in the Jewish communities in Judea, Samaria, Gaza, actually not Gaza is out of the picture, but in Judea and Samaria, to stop working there because of the supposed prevalence of the corona disease in the Jewish communities in these areas. Yesterday, there was a misreport in the city I live in Efrat, which is a city of about 3,200 families. There's 95 families who are right now in isolation because of contact with people who have had corona disease. However, it was reported in the media, the Israeli media and the Arab media, that 95% of the people in Efrat have been affected, which is not the case. We've also learned from our Arab correspondents, both in Gaza and in Bethlehem, who tell us that the Palestinian Ministry of Education is preparing a corona curriculum, which will communicate to the Arab people here and the Arabs around the world that Israel is prepared to spread the corona disease as a weapon against the Arab population. Although that may not sound believable, the Palestinian Authority, together with some of its allies abroad, have been spreading the word that Israelis every morning poison the wells of the Arabs, and therefore that the major cause of sickness and disease. So this is part of what's going on here, and I look forward to sharing more with you. You can look at our website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com, to see more about the research that our office does. And tonight we'll be putting on our website something very important document, which the papal nuncio, the late Archbishop Pietro Sambi, shared with us the constitution of the Palestinian Authority and the PLO, which basically shows them to be in a permanent state of war with Israel. The PLO, which never ratified the Oslo Accords, although people think they did, they never did. And so the supposed peace agreement between the PLO and Israel basically doesn't exist. So this is part of the deal. When you open up our website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com, you'll see our translations of the Palestinian Authority school books. You'll see our reports, our films that we've shot on location with the Arab crews that we work with, and we try to get the truth across. If we ever found an inkling of peace or peace expression by the Palestinian Authority in their schools or in their public domain, we will publicize it tomorrow morning. Unfortunately, it does not exist. This is David Bedin, Behind the Scene with David Bedin, and what follows this newscast now will be a short 1.1 minute and 40-second clip of what Jerusalem looks like today, walking around Jerusalem, walking the dog and showing how the whole area is just like one great ghost town. And following that is the pioneering spirit of my son Noam, who has developed the Dead Sea Revival Project to revive the Dead Sea and to bring environmental consciousness to people in Israel. Again, this is David Bedin, Behind the Scene with David Bedin. Thank you for watching.
Dead Sea is a very unique place, and we're losing it day by day. It hit me personally, and I had to do what it takes to keep on documenting and showing people firsthand about the receding of the water level, the lowest in recorded history. My name is Noam Bedin. I have a nonprofit called the Dead Sea Revival Project. The aim and goal is educating about the environmental aspect of the Dead Sea and inspiring a whole new generation about the story.
We went out to sail on a changing sea. If the water level of the Dead Sea this morning was this high, in another year it will be approximately 1.5 meters lower. While the drop in water level has caused considerable environmental damage, it has also exposed hidden, fascinating layers that have never been seen before.
Since April 2016, I've been documenting the Dead Sea like never before.
Noam Bedin ventures onto the waters twice a month to document the morphine landscape through photography and 360-degree video to create a virtual reality experience, which he exhibits abroad to raise awareness.
This salt formation behind us, a year ago, was almost completely underwater. In order to see the Dead Sea, we have to look up north. North is meaning restoring the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, the Jordan River. That's basically the focus, is restoring the historical flow. This is our challenge today, is to create a global supporting community behind this cause, looking to the future for healing, for saving the Dead Sea.
So you'd say this is sort of a PR project to save the Dead Sea?
For sure. We call it environment advocacy and education. That's our challenge today. Saving really the Dead Sea, and this is what brought me to really see the potential, is a model case for the entire world, and specifically for the Middle East. The water crisis around the world is going to be one of the main issues that the entire world is going to have to be facing in the next decade.
In the past few years, Noam Bedin has gained a rich, state-of-the-art visual archive from the lowest place on Earth. He presents his story using arts and media with the purpose to engage and inspire audiences throughout the world.
Noam, this is one of the highlights of our adventure here on the Dead Sea. These are the salt chimneys. They're right below us. Look at these.
This is the life emerging out of the water, literally, as we speak.
Yeah.
And the fact is how these actually created, you actually have fresh water springs coming from the Hebron and Jerusalem mountains, underneath the ground, underneath the Dead Sea. And in this kind of high salinity of water, fresh water and salt water do not mix. So somehow you have these streams of fresh water.
Coming from Hebron.
Coming from Hebron, correct.
Yeah.
And the microorganism, okay, their job is actually somehow they cause the squeal of the salt to go around them, creating these sleeve of the salt, okay, and inside of the fresh water actually goes inside. this sleeve, this water chimney. Why it's called chimney? Because on the top of it, you actually have the water leaving.
Okay, and they actually look like chimneys. They're little towers there in the Dead Sea that we're looking at.
And what's interesting, so this whole area is considered a forest of salt chimneys.
Wow,
And this was discovered to science like 6 years ago.
Great
this
point.
actually created.
This was not visible too long ago.
Well,
right?
the truth is, we did have these kind of formations on the shores over here, but nobody actually knew what that actually was until they started to investigate about a couple of years ago. All these different research about saving the Dead Sea. They basically realized about this unique geological phenomena that's actually happening these days because of the water level receding.
I've never seen anything like it, Noam. And you mentioned saving the Dead Sea, and that's one of your life's missions. Why did it get like this? You know, we're talking about the water receding. How did this all kind of unfold? Why does the Dead Sea need saving?
It's not a question of water going out, leaving the Dead Sea. There's no water coming into the Dead Sea. So it's very easy for green parties putting the focus on the industry, on the industrial, and the companies, on the all the companies in the south pumping out the water. That's only 30% of the problem. The major problem of the Dead Sea, while we're losing the Dead Sea, is because the historical flow has almost been dried out. We're talking about the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee. So we're talking about the much bigger picture here that's connected to the Israel's water treasures. We're talking about the most biblical, enchanted water bodies of Israel that are being in a much more actually worse condition than the Dead Sea today. And that's why our focus, looking into the long run, in order to save the Dead Sea, you got to save the Sea of Galilee first of all. And of course, this is the whole Middle East politics about the Dead Sea, because you have on the other side, you got Jordan.
Jordan's right there.
Jordan's actually the fourth.
A few miles away from where we're sitting right now.
10 miles away across, that's it.
On the other side of the Dead Sea.
But the thing with Jordan, this is like the fourth country in the world having the least fresh water per capita. They have no drinking water whatsoever.
There's a water crisis in the Middle East.
The entire Middle East, for sure. Actually, the almighty rivers of the Middle East have been dried out for the first time in history. The Tigris, the Nile, this is the first time in history these water bodies have been dried out. Overall, the solutions for Israel, for water management, for water technology, this is a model case of the entire world. Mastering the Dead Sea, saving really the Dead Sea, and this is what brought me to really see the potential, is a model case of the entire world, and specifically for the Middle East. The water crisis around the world is going to be one of the main issues that the entire world is going to have to be facing in the next decade.
And Israel's helping to solve that crisis.
Israel already has a lot of those solutions. Israel is considered a global leader in water management, water technology, education. Already now you have a lot of cooperation with countries around the world. And like we said, being involved with the Dead Sea and having a vision of really saving the Dead Sea on the long run can be a model case for the entire Middle East and also around the world.